Warm welcome to my online yoga studio. My name is Ria. I'm gonna guide you through a slow flow class today with focus on letting go of envy and comparison. I think we all know what it's like to look at other people and say, I wanna look like that, I wanna do that, I wanna be like that. Letting that go. So unroll your mats and join me with a block if you have. As you take a seat on your mat, please find that posture that makes sense in your body. You might rest on the mats if you're really tired. Welcome to do so. We'll breathe just a little bit to kind of get ourselves situated here on the mat in the moment. And then I read a short passage from the Bible that I think we can all learn something from. So close your eyes and rest your hands on your thighs or wherever it feels comfortable. Notice where your breath is currently. Is it in the top of your lungs, or are you somewhat already rested? Just notice. And then try to slow your breathing down. Not so that you feel uncomfortable, but so that you feel more relaxed in your body. As you breathe slowly, you might begin to notice if there are tension in your body that you don't need to hold on to. And then you can let that go. Now, if I ask you the question, honestly, how often do you compare yourself with other people? If it's on a percentage, if 100% is all the time, then how much do you recognize comparing yourself either over or under somehow other people? Now, the Bible actually speaks to comparison with, I think, a super cool image. And I want to read it to you. And don't worry if you're not a Bible believer. I think this is very easy to understand and very speaks to everybody. It says in 1 Corinthians chapter 12:14, now the body is not made of one part, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong in this body, it would not for that reason cease to be a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has arranged the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. So maybe you feel like, I wish I was different. I wish I was an ear or a hand or whatever. But you are who you are. You are who I believe God created you to be. And how wonderful is that? And how silly it is for us to compare ourselves with other people. Carrying around that envy and comparison instead of trying to make peace with what we are and how we are created. At least I like to sigh out and kind of say, okay, God, I want to let go of that comparison. I want to let go of all that envy that might fill my mind. Restore in me a new heart. And maybe open your eyes and just look at your body. Not to judge yourself, but look at your toes, your legs, arms. Maybe you feel your eye or your ears. Just notice how different the whole body is. And now that I've studied a bit of anatomy, it's just amazing how detailed and put together every single joint, skin, size of the muscles, ligaments, everything, how precious that system is, and how much, as we move, especially on the mat, it all works together as a team, right? If that small ligament in the knee is not doing its function, I could have knee pain, right? So it all needs to work together and do its own part. Now get off your seated mat, and if you're on your back, you might also get up in tabletop and do a bit of free movements in tabletop. And especially as we do yoga today together, don't compare yourself to me on the screen. I'm not saying that because I am perfect. I'm definitely not. But if you are better at the postures, you might feel proud. If you are not doing the postures as I'm doing, you might feel less proud. You might feel ashamed. Let go of all that. It really doesn't matter, right? And bring your hand to the front, lift your knees up and find downward facing dog. Now if you're new to this, do your variation of it. Keep your hip up, as long away from the hands as possible. Bending and stretching one leg at a time. Bring your right leg to the top end of the mat and lower down your left knee on the floor. You might fold your mat or use a blanket or something. Bring both hands on the inside of that leg, and then you walk your hands forth and back. Now if the floor is far away, just use your block under the hands. I can show you. But move forth and back. If you have two blocks, just use one for each hand. Opening up the hip. And the next time your hip is back, what is called runner's stretch, you can just put the leg back, tabletop, always a great posture, or your downward facing dog if you prefer. Bring the left leg to the top of the mat. Hands on the inside of the knee joint. With or without block. Move your hips slowly forth and back. This is a slow class, but we are going to warm up especially those hips and the back. And I'm also moving my hips slightly from left to right, not just forward and back. And the next time the knee and ankle is stacked on the front leg, tuck the toes under, lift the knee off, and then make your way to the top of the mat. Fold forward. And then round yourself into a mountain pose on the mat. And close your eyes. What part of the body do you feel like you are? I know this is an odd question, but sometimes odd questions are good. What part of the body do you feel like you are? And maybe you ask yourself why. And maybe also reflect on what part of the body you actually would love to be. What part of the body would you actually envy? And why is that? Right? You might have found some questions. You might not have the time to really reflect on it. You can always ask somebody, a friend or your husband or wife. Step the right leg back. We're going to go to warrior two. So you turn the back foot. So the toes point out, the foot aligned with the short end of the mat, and then reach your hands out. Going low or whatever, but gaze at the top of your hand, soften your elbows, your hands. Notice that your toes, the whole sole of the foot, both feet are down, really touching the floor or the mat. And then bring both hands behind your head. Fold your fingers. Take the elbows out as wide as you can. They might go as wide as your legs here or as your thighs, your hip. Strong core. And then you lean forward. So almost like the front elbow can reach the thigh. Probably not. I will not go that low. Top elbow will tend to drop down. Keep it out. So squeeze here at the back of the shoulder, that top arm really firmly back. Not an easy posture. And then you let go. Both hands or fingers drop down. You might bring the block to help you. Pivot the back foot. Do high lunge. So this variation, you're going to extend the front leg. Hip aligned with the short end of the mat. Reach your hands up and you might let the palms get in together. Trying to stay here, take the shoulders down, and then maybe see if you can hold your balance and lean towards your left side. Now, this is a bit of a challenge, especially with both legs stretched. This is also where the pinky toe actually gets really involved. If you didn't have your pinky toe, you wouldn't be able to hold your balance. So even the pinky toe in the body have an important role to play in the way that we walk, in our balance. And then come back, both hands down on the floor, right knee down. Move yourself back, so extend the front leg, toes pointing up. You might want to squeeze it a little bit more to the front, I like that. And then bring hands, you can bring the block, to the outer edge of your left thigh. So I'm going to do kind of a runner stretch, but with a side bend. And even a block might be great here. And maybe you were thinking, I feel like I am that invisible fat in the body. You know, that fat that you might not like, especially because you would like to be that slim six-pack or whatever. But let's get out of this posture before I keep talking. Bring the left leg you have there at the front, bring it back, tabletop, or actually a variation of it. So you bring your leg back, navel in, reach the right hand to the front, and either just go for a variation like this, or grab the toes if you can, navel towards the floor. Now, fat is precious. We need body fat in our body. Of course, not super duper much, but we do need it. Body fat is vital for healthy living. So even that is not something bad inherently. Let go of the foot, child's pose, and you can release a little bit. So the story tells us that even though we might be jealous, we might compare ourselves, there is there's a calling in your life that only you can have. You need to figure out, you need to ask maybe God, what part of the body am I? And how can I make a difference in this world? Because you can. Take your hands at the top of the mat again. We're going to do the sequence on the other side. So actually we can just start from downward facing dog. So you just bring your right leg to the front, turn the back foot, and then you find warrior two. Opposite direction or side as before. Get the knee over the ankle, arms out, and then look to the front and get those arms softened a little bit. And how vital is the breath? We don't see it, we feel it, but we don't see the breath, the respiratory system, all these things that are invisible in our core, right? Organs. We don't see them. But how important are they? I mean, if you didn't have a heart, if you didn't have a liver, if If you didn't have your whole digestive system, bring your hands behind your head again, elbows out, and really bring them out, bending the front knee, maybe more than you did before, and then lean forward. Now your core, abs, not just the six-pack, everything else working together as a team is holding you up. One more breath. And let go. Hands down so that you can take the back heel off without overdoing something in your knee joint. High lunge with the front leg stretched or trying to. Palms up overhead. Trying to keep the shoulders and the arms aligned with the whole spine here, not the behind tucked back, but tall. Gaze on the floor, and then you lean to your right side. And even left and right side in our body might be a little bit different. At least I sense that when I'm trying to hold my balance. But even that somehow is necessary. I mean, if you're right-handed, it's can be important that your right hand is a little bit more strong than the left, because you just use it more for more things. Come back, soften your knees, hands on the inside of the foot, lower down left knee, bring yourself back, and maybe with a block. Front leg at the top, I like my toes pointing up. And then I bring myself to the side, to the right side. So I'm kind of, not twisting, but turning my core for a side stretch in this side, pointing towards the top of the mat. I mean, I feel it in my front leg as well, but trying to stay on top of the posture so I'm not moving my left hip way too much out to my left side. Let go. Gotta warm up the body before we do our back bend. So come down on your elbows, finding plank, toes or knees on the mat. Navel in. Make sure your elbows are directly underneath those shoulders. And stay put, even though you might be shaking slightly or a lot. And then you bring your knees down, tabletop. We're going to do that posture at the end that we did not do before, or that I didn't put in, so that your right leg goes behind you, left arm to the front. You can stay here, reach behind you, or go for that toe reaching and go for that back bend. And tabletop, cat posture. And you can actually tuck your toes under, like this. Put the top of your head down. You might take a look if you're not familiar with this posture first, though. And then take your hands. You might be able to reach the heels. So this is, I actually don't know what it's called, but it's like this. So I put my spine up towards the sky. I hold on to my heels for a stretch, actually in between the shoulder blades.
I don't put a lot of body weight on my head, so I'm not worried too much about my neck. For the next part, when we're going to do a back bend, you can use a block, but if you have something with your back, you can let go of this posture we're in now. You can also use a blanket, or even put the blanket on top of the block, if that helps. Different variations of block. This is pretty soft, so I'm good. But if you have those wood things, I would suggest you use a blanket on top of it. Okay, I'm gonna come down on the back here, lift the hip off, and then you decide what height the block is gonna be in. You can begin with the lowest, and then you can always switch it up. I'm gonna go with the second just to show. So put the block not underneath the buttocks as such, but under, I would call the last few vertebrae that are kind of grown together at the back. They're the tailbone, kind of. So I'm putting the block to support my bony structure just almost at the bottom of the tail. Bring my hands out in kind of resting posture. I can keep the knees bended like this. Some love to stretch their legs somewhat or the whole way. Now, if you stretch your legs the whole way, this is not super comfortable for my back, but it's great for the hip flexors and psoas that you're stretching here. So you can choose what you like. I'm actually going to kick it up on the highest, and then I'm going to keep my legs bended. I like this variation for my back. I'm going to stay here for half a minute. And now coming back to the theme, it's always easy to remind ourselves that, we shouldn't compare ourselves, we shouldn't envy. But then we do it again. We know it's not helpful, but we do it anyway. So what can we put instead? So when I feel that envy or that whatever it is, maybe there is a phrase that you need to replace the feelings of envy with. Maybe it is, I am loved. And I know that affirmations in just secular settings, I think they can be a little bit cheesy, because then I have to convince myself about things. And that's hard. But if I believe in God, and I believe that God can speak those words to me, to my heart, through the Holy Spirit, that makes sense for me at least. So maybe I picture God saying, you are loved, you are good enough, you are called, you are exactly as you should be. Keep repeating a sentence if you got one. Maybe write it down after the class. But lift your hip up and come down on your back. And then you can hug your knees in. I promised you a little bit of neck massage. I'm going to finish with that. And that will be our resting, so to say. So you can bring your block. And again, if you have a hard, real solid block, I would bring a blanket over it. So bring it on the second height, and that edge that's towards your shoulders, you're going to use that for massage. Now I'm going to have to move my microphone, because the block is going to be exactly where this headset is. So I'm going to show you. So put it like this, and then you put the edge of the block on the, not the skull, but just beneath the skull. And you can always adjust a little bit. And then you turn your head to one side, and maybe you kind of move a little bit from left to right, and see if, on this side, see if you can find a spot that feels great to stay with, and let that pressure off the edge be all. So the body weight of your head, the skull, is going to give a stretch in the neck a little bit, and then some fascia release with that pressure of the edge. You can keep your knees bended like I do, or just rest them on the floor, whatever works for you. Stay put, or draw some small circles with your head. Don't go into any pain, that's too much, but you might feel something. Then you can let go of that side, go to the other side. Now, if you have tension in one side and never the other, obviously you can stay on that one side, maybe find another spot. Or try to relax and move the block if you feel like it's on the skull. And we don't want to go for the vertebrae either. You can't change those. Thank God we can't, because if we could, it would be a little bit hard to keep the spine in this great, beautiful posture or position that it has. And if you want to do small circles, it's really small and it's really slow. Go ahead. All right. Now you can definitely just move the block aside and rest on the floor. Or you can come into a seat. You can pray with me or just listen along if you prefer. I like my hands in prayer posture. So God, thank you that you are not calling us to be alike. Thank you that even though I might feel like an invisible, not important part of the body, you are saying that I am important. That my part has a vital part in everything. Help me to see the importance of my life through the lenses of your love, God. I let go of envy and comparison. Let it not control my life. Let love be the center, the true north that I'm following. Amen.
from my heart to yours. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day and leave a comment and a like. Thank you.